Here's to you, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode of Metal Gear Mondays, the most thorough Metal Gear podcast, or Death Stranding podcast, if you like, on the internet. I don't know. I mean, somebody could be recording it for their own pleasure. I don't know who you are, and if you are that person, your lifestyle probably is not conducive to listening to other podcasts. I am Sam, your host, and I'm joined this week by Cole Duncan.
Hey, Sam.
Hey, Cole. And we have a very special guest on the show. He is one of the founders of the Metal Gear Solid, the unofficial site. He is the owner of the Kojima Productions Network. You know him on Twitter as Nitroid. We have our good friend Ryan Kincaid.
I don't know if I'm that special, but thank you for having me.
Well, it's good. It's good to have you on. We had you back. We had you on the show. I'd say probably about 2 months ago or so, and
about that.
Had a good time talking to you about like what it was like to be on, to be part of the, the birth of the online Metal Gear community. It seems like, and it's good to have you back because it's. I would say, no matter how you are feeling about Death Stranding in this particular moment, I think it's a very exciting time to be a fan of Hideo Kojima and his work.
Yeah, he is off the leash right now, and that is that can be either a good thing or a bad thing.
He's broken his strand to Konami.
Someone gave him a sock, and now he is a free elf.
Yes. You've given Kojima a sock. Kojima is free.
Oh my god.
Let's just say it was Fukushima.
We'll say it's Fukushima. That's a good idea.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, we're in full like swing of Death Stranding fever. I think as you're listening to this, dear listener, we're like, I want to say like 3 weeks out. We're pretty close to.
We are real close.
Yeah,
we're
about
getting
a month.
really close.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the tension, the you could taste it in the air.
Feeling a little uncomfortable after that.
That's fine. I'm just gonna have a sip of my beer here really quick. We're all three of us are beard up. Cole, I forgot I was gonna introduce you as the quaffable Cole Duncan.
Look, all I'm saying is that Corona Premier, very quaffable beer.
Very quaffable beer.
I got nothing else. I got nothing else to say about Corona Premier.
We're gonna leave it at that.
We're gonna leave it at that.
Ryan might say
it is a keto friendly beer.
All right.
There we go.
So if you
it is a keto friendly basic bitch beer.
Mm-hmm. So if you participate in that lifestyle, both the keto lifestyle or the basic bitch lifestyle,
or the quaffable lifestyle,
we're not going to get a Corona sponsorship anytime soon.
I'm working on it. Alessio doesn't know this, but I'm working on that Corona sponsorship.
Yeah. We've been courting Heineken like really heavy recently.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So nothing but beer sponsorships.
Yeah, that's it actually.
So again, here we are. Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back.
I wanted to kind of get started here because as we know, like we just said, Death Stranding is on the horizon. I wanted to kind of start by discussing like how have you been feeling in the build up to this game?
It's hard to put words on because the main feeling I get from it is I'm just really happy that Kojima is able to do something without what seems like any restriction whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I actually don't have many expectations for the game. I've tried to kind of restrain from having too many opinions in advance about it. Like I've seen trailers and gameplay footage and I've kept up with it. So I kind of know what's going on, but thinking past that, I've actually kind of tried to avoid it because I want to be surprised. I don't want to get too much of it. I want to go in as blind as I can, but still kind of remain in that hype engine that he builds up, because that hype engine that he creates for every game he does.
Well, it's almost part of it.
Exactly. So he wants you. It's like the buildup. That buildup is there on purpose, for better or worse. So the thing that's really exciting to me, and I was kind of saying this before, is that he is off the leash, and this is the first original game that isn't like a sequel or anything that he has written and directed since Police Knots. And I know a lot of people are hearing that and they're probably thinking, wait, what about Book Time? What about Zone of the Enders and all this? But he produced on those. Mm-hmm. He did not write them. He did not direct them. He had a hand in them, certainly, but that was not like a Hideo Kojima game.
Yeah.
And it'll even say like right on the cover. So like this is, you could say like this is the first time he's had a new franchise since Police Knots, and the first time he's been mostly off the leash, so to speak, in terms of creative control since MGS2. And you know, we can, you know, you can get into that whole argument if you want, but this is gonna be a litmus test for the kind of creator he really is outside of Metal Gear. Yeah. And that's what's interesting to me.
Yeah. It's gonna be like a kind of like almost like it's a character study of who he is.
Yeah, very much. And I mean, it's hard to say how long he's had this idea in mind, but it sounds like he's had it for a while. I think he did actually mention that he's been kind of ruminating on this specific idea for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would make sense. I mean, he was wanting to do different things back, like all the way back to Metal Gear Solid 2. Like he was wanting to, you know, end the franchise there. So I mean, it makes sense that he could have had an idea for something, maybe not exactly Death Stranding, but for something like this. You know, just kind of ruminating for these past like few years.
And you know, it's hard to say how many other ideas he's had, because you know, he's constantly writing things down and coming up with ideas. And
absolutely, you
know, his assistant will tweet out like, "Oh, the boss comes up with umpteen different ideas a day," and like it's crazy to see. And like, it'll be interesting to see if the next thing after this is going to be just Death Stranding 2 or something completely original again. And I'm honestly hoping for the latter. I want to see fewer sequels and more original outings.
Yeah, I think that's like what's excited me the most about it too, is like, again, you discussed, it's like his first, like, since Police Knots, that he's been able to go off the rails and write something new, and that's what's exciting about it, is that it is new. There are so many derivative ideas in similar games these days, and you know, and it kind of like it's kind of like the movies now, where it's like it's very hard to do an original movie. It seems like people have like
everything's a remake or a sequel.
Right. People are apparently for some reason now people are having difficulty coming up with original ideas for video games. So it's like to see something that is, I mean, at the very least, it's going to be weird, and I can handle that. Like, I'm here for weird.
I don't know if it's so much that people are having trouble coming up with new ideas, so much as it's that the industry is very risk averse right now, which seems kind of crazy considering how much money there is flowing through it. You'd think they'd have a little more openness to trying new ideas. I mean, the video game industry is making money hand over fist in comparison to the movie industry right now. Mm-hmm. There's not even a comparison.
Right. And especially, I mean, it's like, it's more expensive to get like entry into a video game, but you get more time, and you don't have the like burden of having to leave your home. You get more time out of it. You're not spending X amount of dollars for 2 hours of entertainment. You're spending $60 for convenience and like 8 to 40 hours of entertainment each time.
So maybe it's that each singular game is itself more of a risk than each singular movie, even though the industry as a whole is making more money.
Right, potentially. So
it seems like Sony's really just kind of letting him do whatever he wants for this one, and maybe that's because it's like a new studio and they want to get the name out there, and really like this is almost more advertisement for the studio than it is advertisement for the game, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sure. Well, it was a big get for them too, right? Like when it was announced that it was going to be a Sony exclusive and he was working with Sony, like it was a big get for Sony, especially coming off of like...
It's bigger than you think too, because if you look at the legal disclaimers on the bottom of the posters and the promotional materials for Death Stranding. Death Stranding is owned by Sony.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not... Kojima Productions may be making this and they may have full creative control, but this is a Sony product.
Huh. So this is like one of those things where like it's not going to Xbox ever. It's not like a timed exclusive. Like this is...
I think there is precedent for Sony games coming to PC, but I wouldn't expect it. I mean, I would not be surprised if this comes to PC. In fact, that may be part of their agreement with Kojima Productions. It's just this is just speculation. But Xbox, probably not.
Wild.
I mean, to an extent, that can be expected. I mean, Kojima has a long history with Sony. I mean, as not only through Konami, but just as a producer himself. I mean,
it's interesting now, though. I mean, I wonder how many friends he has there now that Andrew House is gone, Sean Layden is gone, Jim Ryan is now CEO, and I don't know what Kojima's relationship is like with Jim Ryan. But with everything changing in Sony as quickly as it is, I'm hoping that doesn't shake up their relationship.
I hope not either, but I feel like he's respected enough in the industry that it wouldn't cause too many problems. I feel like if you're a CEO incoming to the PlayStation division or incoming to Sony, like I can see you knowing who Hideo Kojima is and just
he's almost untouchable. Because if you
so prolific,
wrong him, then you're gonna bring down the wrath of pretty much everybody.
Yeah, Konami learned. I wonder, one thing you mentioned, and this is something that we have also discussed on the show, is that like they are kind of letting him do whatever he wants to, which Konami, like, I mean, he got away with a lot at Konami, but they definitely like reined him in a little bit, and I wonder, I had wondered if that was something that maybe he needs almost.
Hard to say. It's difficult to look at his time at Konami and not see some overreach there, but I mean, this is such a can of worms because there is so much speculation about what happened between him and Konami, and I suspect that it's far more benign than gaming blogs would probably have you believe. Businesses are going to act like businesses, and there were those reports through Nikkei where they talked about employees being isolated, and here's my issue. When we get these stories and reports stateside, they're coming from, you'll have game journalist A reads a report, sends it to game journalist B, who does a translation that may or may not be accurate. We don't know. Who then, writes an article about it or passes it off to game journalist C, who tries to interpret it for the wider audience. And then game journalist C's article gets spread out to social media, who then gets a hold of the story and exaggerates it or interprets it a certain way. And by the time it gets to, the, person on the street, so to speak, it's like a game of telephone. How much of what we've heard is actually accurate? And I mean, we can point to the Nikkei reports and say, okay, well, maybe that's the closest to the truth that we can get. But even looking at those reports, I mean, where is that coming from? I know journalists can't give up their sources, and so you kind of have to take them at their word as to what they say. But I don't know. Not to cast doubt on the report, but I wish I had more information on the person who wrote these reports, on where they got their information from, because there seems to be a lot of assertion and not a lot of citation. So I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. It's like there are known unknowns and unknown unknowns, so to speak. I don't know. But back to what I was saying, not to kind of go off on a tangent here, but you look at a company like Konami and they're okay. Let's kind of take emotion out of this for a second. Let's put personal feelings about what happened and put it on a shelf somewhere for a minute and just look at this clinically
through a lens of objectivity. Yeah.
Let's try and be objective here. Konami is a large company that makes games, and you have a singular game designer who is building up a very, very prestigious reputation, who is then also putting his name on all your products, in some ways more than your name is on the product, even though you own all the properties. And then he's building a subsidiary company inside of your company that his name is on instead of yours. And then he's building another subsidiary in the States, and he's putting money into that his name is also on, that your name is not. I can see why that might rub some of the executive team the wrong way.
Right. Almost like it feels like he's bigger than the company in a way.
A bit. And so I'll tell you what I think happened, and this is my personal opinion. So you can debate it, you can refute it, you can deny it, you can say whatever. This is my opinion.
Well, grab a couple grains of salt and chuck them in the mouth.
I think what you had was essentially, you look at Konami and you have someone like, who's the CEO of Konami currently? I know it was Kozuki. It was Kagimasa Kozuki at the time.
Oh, now I have no idea.
It was bad. He was one of the original founders. So I gotta look this up here. It doesn't matter. But you have the CEO of Konami, who has one vision for the company, and then you have Kojima, who at his highest level was a VP of one of their subsidiaries. And they have opposing visions for the company. And I think ultimately what happened was that the bigger stick won. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I don't really think there's too much more to read through than that. I mean, and you can get into conversations about Japanese work culture, and I don't know too much about that, so I can't speak to it. Maybe there were some things that happened there that weren't good. I don't know. There's so much hearsay and so much rumor that it's impossible to really say what was going on. I think it was crappy that Kojima got basically, he was given the boot, but I don't know. I know I'm going in circles here, but it's hard to kind of, I'll put a fine point on it. It's hard to kind of have a concrete opinion on this when I've got so little information that is verifiable.
Right. And that's the thing, is who are the people that do? It's Kojima and Konami. Right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to say.
I mean, I was angry about it like everybody else was, but over time I'm like, well, I really don't know what happened there. And that's not to say Kojima did anything wrong. It's just to say I don't know.
Yeah. It was such a weird situation.
It is. So, and I think a lot of people also forget that most of the development team did not leave with Kojima. They are still there working. Those are the people that he trained for a very long time to take over once he was done with Metal Gear. And they're still there.
Yeah. So
sorry, I kind of took that off on a
no, that's totally fine. But I mean, if you think about it, so I mean, everybody was mad initially, and they were upset initially, but then it was almost like that whole split. It breathed life into him, obviously, because it's like Cole said earlier, he'd been trying to stop making Metal Gear all the way back in Metal Gear Solid 2, and so he's free, and that whole split allowed him to do what he's doing now, which leads us to Death Stranding and whatever kind of experience it's going to be, which is whatever it winds up being. It's exciting, and I think it's beneficial to have people doing new things and new ideas.
You know what's really funny about looking at a game like Death Stranding? And specifically in reference to all of the complaints about it being a walking simulator and all that crap, which is just silly. Like, Shadow of the Colossus is one of the most celebrated games of all time.
The majority of that game is traversal.
The majority of that game is literally just riding a horse around an empty area.
Yeah.
And you're going to look at a game like Death Stranding and tell me that looks boring because you're just walking around. Okay.
I mean, that's fair. That's really fair.
That's actually not something that I have thought about before. That's interesting to think about.
I mean, and maybe I'm a little biased here because I like chill out games where you can just kind of sit back and take in the world. Like this is not a great comparison, but one of my favorite games of all time is SSX 3.
Yeah.
Because you can basically go. The way they structured that game was that they have this huge mountain range, and then they split up segments of it into individual courses that you can race on. But if you want to, you can get dropped off on the top of the mountain and free ride your way down through any number of paths all the way to the bottom, and it'll take you about a half hour to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can just cruise down. So if I ever need to like relax and just not think about things for a while, like that's my go-to game. So the idea of going into Death Stranding and just kind of walking around and taking in that scenery and just figuring out like, okay, I just need to make it from A to B, and I can do that at my own pace the way I want. That's cool to me.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I mean, I love having games like that too. Like I'm the same way with like, you know, just I'd like to sometimes just turn my brain off and just do a thing and not have to worry about like the next objective sometimes.
Like I get the impression that people who complain about Death Stranding being a walking simulator probably don't take walks in the park very much.
Yeah, they don't. You don't get the pure relaxing bliss that is just hanging out in a park for a little bit.
Yeah, dude, just like it's like, dude, okay, you know, complain about it being a walking simulator, but have you ever been fishing? Just
have you ever been fishing? Like, it reminds me of that.
On that note, I hope that Death Stranding has fishing. That's my
I do
one
hope it.
big
I will. Fishing was like my favorite thing to do in Final Fantasy 15.
I think Yoko Taro said, was it Yoko Taro who said this? It was like, it's not really a JRPG if it doesn't have fishing.
I mean, it sounds like something Yoko Taro would say, and he'd be correct. So,
so it's my rule. If I ever make a game, every game I make will have to have fishing in it.
Good. I'm into that.
You have to have fishing, and you have to be able to pet the dog.
Yes, always be able to
absolutely.
Pet the dog. That's an essential. That's essential. You saying "Have you ever been fishing?" reminds me of Airplane. You ever been in a cockpit before? You ever seen a grown man naked?
Oh God.
Oh man!
Like how he has a drinking problem and he just like splashes it on his forehead.
So yeah. So I was wondering. So you've kind of been, you know, like you said, you've tried to keep yourself in that like hype machine, right? And so I made a point because, you know, doing this podcast, we do a lot of coverage and we try to cover as much as we can, if not everything. And one of the things I had pointed out on Twitter and on the show was that, you know, where people were just like, well, I don't want to watch 50 minutes of gameplay. I don't want anything to get spoiled for me. And I'm sitting here just like, this is the man who until release date made us think that Metal Gear Solid 2 was going to be about Solid Snake, and it wound up being Raiden for most of the game. So I was never worried that spoilers were going to be a huge deal, because like he has his hands in like every like part of this, and cultivating an experience that shows people what the game is about, but not spoiling what his story is entirely, would have been like one of his big goals, I would imagine. So going into this, we have some limited information about like these characters and stuff, and I was wondering if you had developed any theories or like thoughts about what you think might happen, which I know is hard because who knows, but
well, this might not be the angle you'd like me to go at this from, but this is his first outing with a new studio, and while he is well known for his quality of work, there is something to prove here. So I don't think that we're going to get a Raiden level bait and switch, simply for the fact that he's got to kind of establish what he's doing first. Yeah. You know, the reason the Raiden bait and switch worked was because you had an expectation in advance of what the game was going to be like. And with Death Stranding, there's no expectation to subvert.
Sure.
Everything's fair game. So I think this game's going to be played mostly straight until we get into the end game, and then maybe he'll kind of show his hand a bit more. I think there's going to be something. There's something here, but whatever that is, it's not going to be like the Raiden swap out. I don't think you're going to start this game and we're going to play as Sam for like 10 minutes and then we're going to immediately switch to like Fragile or Mads or something. Like,
no.
I don't think it's going to be that.
I think like you said, there's going to be a lot of like end game and some like twists and turns.
He's doing something. Okay, he's doing something kind of clever and not very obvious with this game that I think a lot of people have picked up on but aren't able to articulate well. He's giving us a lot in terms of telling us what the game is, how's it going to play, what are your objectives, what are the mechanics like. But for some reason, it still seems confusing, right? Like, even though he's given us all this information and all of this, all these character introductions and everything, it still seems like it's not cohesive. Something's not sticking it all together.
Right.
He's not giving us the context that makes it all click. And the context is the title. What is Death Stranding?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing he's not telling us. What does that title mean? And the most he said is like, oh, it's a reference to, Life Stranding, which is, where whales wash up on the beach and like, okay, that tells us nothing. Thanks. Once you have that piece of information, I think everything's going to click.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like Higgs.
So if you want speculation, if you want, okay, this is about as far as I'm going to go with speculation here.
Okay.
But here's what I've got, and this is very terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm far from the only person to think along these lines, but the feeling I get about this is that at some point, science figures out how to... Science quantifies the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process, breaks the barrier between our world and the afterlife. Mm-hmm. And so there's whatever's going on has to do with that. Like, we figured out that the afterlife is a real thing, and it's pretty messed up, and someone broke the wall between those two, and now they're flooding into each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's about as far as I can get with this, honestly. And I may be completely off, but that's what it seems like's going on.
I mean, that's not as far-fetched as every other theory that's come out about this so far. So, I mean, like, that one's pretty on the level, honestly.
It's interesting to see him go. I mean, definitely there's something going on with the afterlife, and he likes to.
Yeah.
His thing has always been, okay, well, we'll drift into the supernatural, but we'll also sprinkle little scientific explanations that make them not too far detached from reality.
which
with varying success in the later games, right?
Yeah.
When we start getting into nano machines for everything.
Yeah, machines. We have our ghost dad sorrow,
Right. but when you kind of accumulate it all and you look at the big picture of Metal Gear, the truly supernatural stuff that isn't explained, you could it's a short list. You could almost count them on one hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because it may not have started that way, but for where we are now, everything has kind of had an explanation. So it's interesting to me that with Death Stranding, it seems like he's drifting further into the supernatural, much more than he has in the past. Like, there's very clearly some like non-scientific stuff going on here. At least that's what it seems like. So that's interesting to me. So it's far less grounded.
Which I think is good, and I think it'll help. Like, I think it helps like with the story as well, because now he has room. Like, he doesn't have to be like tethered down by, this is it's a military, like,
right,
thing at its heart, so it has to be somewhat grounded. He has like,
I'm sure we'll get something like, the equivalent of metachlorians, but for souls or something.
It's nanomachines.
Right. It's soul machines or spirit machines, nano souls. I don't know.
Nano souls.
Make up a word. We'll probably get that.
Just pull something down, and whatever comes to your mind is what it is.
Something quantum something.
Die Hardman is just the Qui-Gon Jinn of this world now.
Yeah, pretty much.
That actually reminds me. It makes me think about. So before I wanted to tell you. So on one of our previous episodes, I set up a slap bet with Cole. Where if I'm wrong, he gets to slap me, and if he's wrong, I get to slap him. I just kind of called my shot, and I was just like, I think Amelie's a bad guy.
Oh no!
So I did this whole thing, like it was this whole deal. I was wondering if you had, like, out of all the characters that we've seen, do any of them like really kind of call out to you, like who are you like most excited to like get to know throughout the course of the game?
That's a good question. Well, I'm kind of going through them in my head here.
So I think that Cliff is just
probably
right
Cliff.
Yeah, he's like the right amount of mysterious. Yeah.
Probably Cliff or Higgs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Higgs was always the one that I really wanted to know more about.
It's more like with Higgs, it's more like I want to know what the heart of the division between like Bridges and his organization are. Like I want to see that. Like what's the analog there? Because if this is supposed to be a game that is vaguely about the political split in the West right now,
right,
then it's safe to assume that the political division in the game is going to reflect that to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of curious how that's framed. So that's why I kind of want to know more about Higgs.
I mean, they're literally called madmen in Latin. Like what
exactly.
is why? Like what is the correlation between them and the UCA and why?
There's a lot of references that they're doing too. Like maybe I'm not sure what it's going to mean yet because I've never read it, but the device that they have on their shoulders for detecting the BTs.
Yeah, it's called the Odredex sensor.
Which is from right. It's from a Kafka novel called The Cares of a Family Man.
Is it?
Or not novel. It's like a short story or something. Yeah, but I haven't read it. But it's like some weird starfish looking thing.
Huh.
And I need to read it because I don't remember the exact.
I guess I'm gonna start reading Kafka.
There's some sort of like narrative purpose for it that's I don't know because I haven't read it, but like they're pulling references from or pulling inspiration rather from all over the place. So
sure.
Now, like I'm also kind of curious what the constant like gold seems to be a recurring element. no pun intended, but it's you constantly see gold everywhere, for example.
Well, like, and it is kind of iconic, like gold, like, and then like Higgs's mask is gold, and like what's all this, yeah.
And then you have those like hand-looking things growing out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the catcher that Higgs summons has a gold face.
Right. So what's going on there? Like, what is that?
Amelie's necklace
symbolic of.
Mm-hmm.
Amelie's necklace is also gold. Higgs takes it.
Yeah, didn't Higgs have the same thing? I think.
No, I think
he took it from her.
Oh, he took. Okay.
Yeah.
You remember when people were like looking at the necklace and like trying to decode, like, is there a message in Morse code? Like, come on, guys.
Maybe it's like Shyamalan, where when Red appears, something bad's about to happen.
honestly, all kidding aside, it could be something that simple. I mean, like a lot of people. I'll give you an example of something kind of like that. And I mean, this is more conjecture than fact, but take it for what it is. But MGS5, a lot of people complain about the lack of dialogue and how everyone's really quiet and they don't say a lot, and so obviously that means the game was unfinished because there wasn't a finished script and they didn't have time to record it, or they were going over budget and couldn't record. Blah 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 blah. Truth is, it was probably like that because Kojima was really big on the movie Drive at the time.
Not a lot of dialogue in Drive.
Nope.
Love that
and
movie.
he would not shut up about it.
Well, now his good friend Nicholas Winding Refn is in the video game.
Exactly. Yeah. So sometimes a spade is a spade.
Yeah. That movie, Drive was a good movie.
Yeah,
it was a really good movie.
Didn't he get like a replica of the jacket or something too?
I think so. Yeah.
Which is still a really cool jacket too.
But seriously, I mean,
cool
a lot of the times when you see stuff in his games, it's not because there's a deeper meaning to it, though maybe it's you could argue that it's in service to some deeper meaning, but a lot of the time it's because he saw a cool thing in a movie and wanted to put it in. Like Solidus's flame trails in MGS2 whenever he accelerates is literally just ganked from Back to the Future. That's the only reason it's there.
It makes for a cool effect. I mean,
it does, and that's fine. It's okay to do cool things. That does not make you shallow if you like cool things.
Well, it's one of those things because like I have like a ton of tattoos on my arms, and they have some meaning behind them, but it's a lot of it is just like I like this thing, and so like.
I think that's the most honest way to do things. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't think about things and plan it and structure it.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with honest enthusiasm.
No.
Not.
You're not shallow for liking things.
Yeah. Be proud of the things that you like.
Yes.
I mean that's the entirety of this podcast.
Yeah, we're super proud that we like Metal Gear. We made
pretty much.
We've done it for 4 years. So yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the development and the process of this game coming out, and one of the things that has happened in the run-up, which I think you had said something about, was the controversy quote surrounding those tweets that Hideo published.
Oh yeah.
So we actually we haven't really covered. We've mentioned it in passing, but we haven't really covered it on the show, and I think it's probably this is a good time as any to kind of talk about it because we have you on. So there were 2 tweets that Kojima had published that got a little bit of flack. One of them got responded to by the official Toe Jam and Earl Twitter account, which is like cool. So he published one tweet that said on December 16th, 2015, and I became independent, no office, just a tiny room, no staff, no machines, nothing. All I had was this KJP logo, notepad and pen on my own PC. I started to work on the concept while recruiting staff, finding office game engine, and had a dream and connection, and that's all. And with a little like thumbs up emoji at the end of it. And then more recently, he tweeted out what the definition of a quote Hideo Kojima game is. And he said that Hideo Kojima game means the declaration of me doing concept, this is produce, but production, original story, script, setting, game design, casting, dealing, directing, difficulty adjustments, promoting, visual design, editing, supervising the merch. And it came with that like really cool like Death Stranding poster. And so people got up in arms about it, right? Like really up in arms. So what it boils down to is basically a translation problem, because the tweets are very different in Japanese, and we could have gotten to this a little bit earlier too, when you're talking about like those reports about like his split from Konami, where they're like sent through so many filters. This was like a language thing.
Is it though?
I mean,
okay. Oh boy.
Let's unpack this.
Okay. Let's just say, okay. So how do I broach this the right way? Clearly there is a tone that did not translate there.
Mm-hmm.
But that aside, did he really say anything that was all that wrong, or are people just looking for an excuse to tear him down?
I think they might be looking for an excuse. I think what the like I said, I say controversy in quotes. I think the problem was, what came out was it very much seemed like he was taking credit for stuff that, that he had help on, I guess, is what the big issue was.
I didn't read it like that in the first place, though. I mean,
and that's
you kind of have to be an idiot not to think that that other people help in the process of making a game. You kind of have to be intentionally dense to read it that way, I think. Like, of course he's got help. He's a supervisor, though.
Yeah.
He's making calls about these things. He's calling the shots. And ultimately, he's responsible for it, which means that if this game fails or succeeds, it's on him.
Because if Death Stranding, if and I don't think it will be, and I think that, heaven forbid, but if Death Stranding comes out, November 8th rolls around, and people play it, and it's like a 1 out of 10 video game, nobody's going to be calling for the head of like the
dev team.
The dev team. They're going to be coming for Kojima.
Right. Funny that, huh? Yeah. So, I mean, I think that like there's a lot of armchair Kojima experts who like to come out of the woodworks every time, there's a little bit of vulnerability apparent.
Sure.
And it's so annoying because this idea that he doesn't credit his staff, that he takes credit for everything, that he doesn't, how is it put on Twitter? He doesn't elevate his staff. I saw so many people just talking like they had followed him for years and very clearly hadn't. And it takes you maybe like, if you have even a peripheral familiarity with his work, you'll know that that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, I mean, there's recorded examples of him elevating his staff.
How many of the people who have worked for him can you name, just off the top of your head?
I mean, I
name 3.
I like off the top of my head, like I can't name most of them, but I think that's systemic of like just the industry, because I
can you name one?
Fukushima for one.
Okay, what's another?
Yoji Shinkawa.
Okay, you got one more?
Ryan Payton.
Okay, so who did the art for Halo?
No clue.
Who did the art for Call of Duty?
No clue.
No idea.
Who did the art for Far Cry?
No idea.
How about who did the music for those games?
No clue.
Okay, so you see my point here.
Yeah, generally speaking.
Most people who follow Hideo Kojima and actually pay attention to what he puts out there from his company, people who actually know what they're talking about, can off the top of their head name 3 or 4 or more people who are on his staff.
Yeah.
How many other developers can you say that for?
Not many.
I mean, that's fair.
Let's even look at like let's look at like an auteur developer or somebody. Let's look at, like, I hate to use this example because I'm not a big fan, but like David Cage. Name somebody who works with David Cage.
I got
name somebody who works with Peter Molyneux. Name somebody who works with Ken Levine. Name somebody who works with oh god, I'm blanking. The Double Fine guy.
Oh, Tim Schafer.
Yeah, Tim Schafer. Name anybody who works with those guys. And other than maybe like some super hardcore fans, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's fair. Nobody has a problem. Now, maybe they aren't kind of projecting the same auteur level attitude that Kojima does, but don't tell me that he doesn't elevate his staff, because he puts them front and center on just about every aspect of this stuff. From the podcasts to the art. I mean, the fact that Aki Saito does his side projects. I mean, this is a ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
You had a tweet not too long ago, like showing off the like in Metal Gear Solid like subsistence, like where you can go into the menu and actually see every single member of the development staff, like everything about them. I mean, like
it's the coolest thing ever, man. It was
it's really cool.
Then it's called okay. So after Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, or rather, when from the moment that game became public. With that first trailer all the way up until release and afterwards. People were amazed that was even possible on not just the PlayStation 2, but in video games at all.
Yeah.
Like, that was breaking expectations. That was setting a bar higher than anything had ever been set. I mean, you had people who worked in PC gaming that were like, holy shit, how did he do this?
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. Because there was such a level of attention to the production value and to the storytelling that really no one had been doing at that point. And so there was all this mystique around the game. So what they did was they released this standalone disc called The Document of Metal Gear Solid 2. And it got bundled with Subsistence in the UK, and I want to say in Japan, but I think I'm wrong about that. And it got released standalone here in the States, and it's basically a development Bible for Metal Gear Solid 2 that lets you browse staff biographies, the entire script, the game design document, the development timeline. You can see how they did the music. You can view 3D models, browse cut content, view all the cutscenes in real time and fly through them as they're playing so that you can view them from any angle. I mean, everything you could imagine was on this thing.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. And yeah, the staff biographies were awesome because it broke down. It clearly didn't have everybody, but the key staff members, of which there were quite a few, you could go in and view a little picture and a little bit of information, and they had a quote in there, and it told you what they did. And I've never seen that done in another game.
Yeah. Which
no one has ever done that.
No, like not even a little bit. We're very familiar. We've been trying. I think we've been trying to get our hands on a copy of that for a while because it's kind of hard to find now. I think unless we're not looking hard enough. But
I'll help you with that later.
Very cool. To hear. So yeah, it was unprecedented. But
nobody knew about it. There's actually a really funny anecdote about it too, where Kojima went to one of the bigger retail stores on the day that the document released. Mm-hmm. And what blew his mind was that all of the people waiting in line to buy it weren't gamers; they were game developers.
Mm-hmm. Well, because that was it was all thing, it was a development Bible. Like it was just like
everyone wanted to get tips on it. I mean, there are coding examples in there. I mean, it is in depth.
Yeah. And it's one of those things like it was done, and then if we jump to today, like you see like development videos and people talking about like the development of games and like the people who make the games and whatever, but nothing like that has ever been done since.
Right. It may be about games, but it's not done through the medium of games. Right. And if we're going to push if we're going to push the medium forward, if we're really going to take it seriously, you have to start using it for other things other than just the thing you're selling. I want to see people like do. Could you make a game that's also a documentary?
Ooh, yeah.
That's
like I would thought. Like if I was ever going to make a game, I would want to do that.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool. That'd be really, really cool.
And I'm not sure if it would work, but like no one's trying this stuff. You know, gamify the credits. Gamify documentaries. For all of the crap we give David Cage about his writing, I mean, at least he's trying to do something unorthodox.
Yeah. I will say, and this is kind of like a light example too, but like Smash Brothers has always been good about like the credits are always some type of interactive thing.
There you go.
Oh yeah,
don't just read the credits, play the credits. Yeah. It engages you more. You know, a lot of people work on this, make people interested in actually seeing who did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Instead of just complaining about it on Twitter.
Yep.
So how many of the I saw a lot of game developers complain about Kojima, saying like, "Oh, he could really, our industry lives on the backs of these creators, and for him to do this, it just hurts." and I'm thinking like, you sanctimonious little, like, okay, put your money where your mouth is. Elevate your developers.
Yeah.
Do something like the document of MGS2, or shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like even like after all this Twitter stuff came out, like there were like people would be like, well, if you look at it in the original Japanese, it really is this, and like
right. And I hate that that's the thing that got everybody to back down.
Yeah.
Like, no, you were being stupid to begin with. I'm sorry. That whole thing really just pissed me off.
Yeah. Well, well, this might be a perfect time to talk about a recent tweet you made. At the beginning of October. And let me
gee, which one? I don't know what you're talking about.
One of many. Let me pull it up so I can get the quote just right.
I say a lot of shit, so
So October 1st, you had a bit of a dilemma, Ryan.
I'm scrolling back like, this.
Yeah. Do you A, try to futilely correct misinformation about Metal Gear, Hideo Kojima, and Konami by making YouTube videos, potentially hamstringing my other creative efforts? Or B, ignore it and learn to let people be wrong on the internet, but also maybe lose my damn mind? And you also put a fun option C, which was make my own Metal Gear game with blackjack and hookers, which is my vote.
Yeah, likewise. Absolutely. Likewise.
I'm leaning towards C, I'll tell you. I'll leave it at that.
But if you want to elaborate, if you feel like elaborating, I'd like to talk to you about option A a little bit.
Well, okay. Let me think here, because what do you
Well, so I guess I guess my main question, my first question about it is, what was the thing that prompted you to do that, to make that tweet?
Okay. I don't want to call anybody out.
Okay.
But it was something very specific.
Okay.
It was a somewhat well-known YouTuber released a video as part of a series that has been a kind of purported as a deep dive into Metal Gear from beginning to end, and going into Kojima's intentions and a bit of behind the scenes, but with a bit of speculation.
Was it us?
And it was not you. It was not you. And I won't give any more information than that, because I really don't want to call somebody out and draw negative attention to them. Like, if you know what, anybody listening, if you know who or what I'm talking about, do not go after them. Just don't. Just don't be lame. Just leave it alone. You know, if you want to refute the point and do it politely, but don't go attacking people, please. Okay.
And that's good advice. Okay. That's good advice for anybody. For anybody and anything.
For real.
Just
if you attack people even though they're wrong, it makes you more wrong. Mm-hmm. Just don't. So now that I've, ridden that moral high horse for a second, let's get back to brass tacks here. Okay. So I don't know what made me watch the whole thing through, and it was pretty long. I think it was like an hour long, something like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe over an hour long. It was pretty long, and given that this was a pretty long series, it's a lot of content. So I listened through it, and I was starting to think like, man, should I have like a bottle here so that I can take a drink every time this person says something that's completely inaccurate? Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with, in this case, it was about Metal Gear Solid 5 and PT. And the development controversies around that. There was also a little bit about Survive, but that's another can of worms to get into. But there is this. I don't want to dive into the specifics because we'll extend this podcast out for like another 2 hours if I do. But the gist of it is there's this common attitude or belief rather that Metal Gear Solid 5 is an unfinished game, whatever that means. When you really in software development, finished and unfinished are very nebulous terms. They don't really. Maybe you have like an arbitrary finish line or a point where you say, okay, we're not gonna work on this anymore. We're gonna release the commercial, but you don't typically have a clear. It's less of a starting point and a finish line, or more of just like a process where at a certain point you say, okay, this is ready to go. Does that make sense? And I'm probably going to get some backlash on that a bit, but it's not a crystal clear thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
But this idea that Metal Gear Solid 5 was this unfinished game that like there's this huge chunk of content that we didn't get. There's the Kingdom of the Flies thing, and there's the Chapter 3 title card that we found in the when they were data mining, and there's the battle gear that we didn't get, and the whole there's all this lack of dialogue and all this empty space, and the game doesn't feel right, and it makes me feel like there's something missing. I don't know why a game called The Phantom Pain would make me feel like there's something missing, but clearly there's something missing. I know I'm being a smartass, but the point is, when it comes to, if we're being factual, if we're being objective, if we're looking at official sources, and you can choose to disbelieve the sources if you want to, but that's not really an argument.
Mm-hmm.
That's just you pushing the argument away. Metal Gear Solid 5 was released the way they wanted to release it.
Yeah.
That was what they felt was, for all intents and purposes, despite the nebulous nature of the term, a finished product. You just didn't like it. But that's not going to, we've got people from Konami speaking to as much. We've got people who have worked on the game, who helped develop the script, say that it was a finished game. That this was what we wanted to do. This was the purpose of the game. This was, yes, there were changes we made during development, but this was what we wanted to put out. But that doesn't stop the rumor mill from basically making it sound like we got 30% of a game that Konami was taking a whip to Kojima's back and saying, we're going to take your name off of this and you're not going to put in anything fun because we hate you. No, people, come on. Well, this is a professional.
I think it's the difference between because 5 clearly was not everybody's cup of tea. We've on the
it was a very different product. Yeah,
on the show we've also had things to say about that in however many words, but it's like, I think to
there are things I don't like about it. Quite a few things.
But I think doing stuff like that is taking it too far. I think painting, it's very easy to be upset with something and then paint your own narrative on top of it.
Let me put it like this. If Metal Gear Solid 5 is unfinished, then so is MGS2 and MGS4 and who knows how many other games he's worked on, because there is so much content that was planned and got removed, either because it didn't work or they didn't like it, or they just couldn't work it in the right way. Then I guess those games are unfinished too. Let's look at MGS2 didn't have the gameplay sequence where you run from the tanker. I guess it's unfinished. MGS4 didn't have the lake sequence or the extra floor in Shadow Moses. I guess that was unfinished because it didn't have the sewer scene either. Unfinished game, guys. Let's throw a fit. Let's get on Twitter, start yelling.
Yeah.
It's stupid. It's just really stupid that this stuff. It's believe that if you want, but don't start telling people that it's the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
And that kind of extends to PT as well, because a lot of people have beliefs about what went down with PT.
We have even less information about PT than we do 5.
Yeah.
Right. I've heard this stupid rumor. I don't even know if you want to even call it a rumor, but it's this idea that PT was somehow Kojima making a gotcha at Konami or something like that. Like he was intentionally trying to give them a hard time.
What?
And what? Oh, what? No. It doesn't even make sense. There's all sorts of weird stories about Okay. let's bring it back home here, because I'm going on kind of an aimless rant here, and I'm not making a whole lot of sense, or at least not as much as I'd like. Don't romanticize game development. That's my message here. Don't do it. Because whatever story you're writing for yourself in your head is probably very detached from reality. The reality of this stuff is very benign. I may not work in games development, but I do work in software development, and it's pretty freaking boring at times.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we're not making anything that's aspiring to high art here, but we do important work.
Yeah.
It's work that we care about. But it's not this constant dramatic thing. And then, this is my personal experience, so feel free to just, discount it or whatever. But like, this isn't just people making creative things. This is also their job. Okay? They can't do these kind of things that would put that job at risk when they have families to take care of. And for you to insinuate it is just stupid and insulting.
For sure.
Just, okay, so there's my rant there. But that was the crux of why I said that, because there were like a list of maybe like 40 things in just this one video alone. And I've heard them echoed elsewhere, whether it's like on social media or on Twitter or Facebook or, who knows where else. But I saw that and I was like, oh geez, should I just say something? Should I just let it go? Is it even my responsibility? Am I caring too much? Should I just go for a walk?
No, I mean, I think you're valid in all of your opinions there, my man. I mean, people shouldn't, uphold these developers on a pedestal just because of their past projects. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic that they've done these amazing things. But we do still exactly to err is to human. Exactly. I mean, we have to kind of judge them on the merit of their work, and
what it reminds me of is when I'm gonna have some friends yell at me for this if they hear me talking about it, because I'm bringing him up. But Yang Ye is someone who talks about Metal Gear quite a bit. And there was a video that he put out a while back about how, I think the headline was something like, Konami developers sabotage Metal Gear Survive. And I looked at that like, what are you even talking about? It's just because there's an Easter egg that you could have, 10 different explanations for. That somehow equates to people sabotaging the game. Okay. And like it's this speculative romanticizing of the process that just really irks me.
Yeah. I mean, even like me personally, like throughout our like coverage of Death Stranding, you can actually listen to it from our first Death Stranding episode to like where we are now. You can kind of listen to me soften, because I feel like I had my own personal like revelation about this exact thing as we were doing it. And so I understand that and like feel that, more than anyone right now.
I just really wish people would try to remember that there are people working on these things. Not abstract concepts with names and faces that do crazy art and do crazy things like characters in a book. No, they're people.
Yeah.
Let
them be people.
Let them be people. They're going to do things that you agree with, and they're going to do things that you disagree with. And ultimately, most of it's going to be out of self-interest. So, because it's their job.
Yeah.
So, chill out.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular with, Kojima's upcoming work that you are maybe hoping to like find or, see like a certain kind of style? Or as a fan personally, I love the fact that we're getting this kind of drab art style and, scenery, and I like there's a stealth element to it. is there something in there that you are, looking forward to?
It's kind of boring, but not really. It's
No?
every game has had kind of a distinct identity to it. Even
Sure.
throughout Metal Gear, each one is kind of unique in its own weird way. It's got its own personality. And so
Right.
I'm just kind of interested to see, like, what's the new personality going to be for this one?
Do you have any speculation as to what that, just off of what we've seen, what's your read so
Well,
far?
okay. Not to get too deep into it, but
Sure.
with the game, with most of the Metal Gear titles, the pretty much the newer ones, each one has kind of drawn from one aspect of kind of a core central question. And so, okay, let me be a little more specific. Okay, I've heard some people call MGS 1 through 3 the Identity Trilogy. You ever heard that before?
No.
So MGS 1 is about genes, MGS 2 is about memes, MGS 3 is about scenes, and everybody kind of gets that gist, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then 4 comes along is about sense, and 5 comes along is about peace, and Peace Walkers.
Peace, yeah.
About peace. Sometimes it's hard for me not to call it that. I don't know if you've ever seen, but there's a picture of like a pre-release logo for Peace Walker that has it labeled as Metal Gear Solid 5 Peace Walker.
Huh.
Yeah, I'll show you that later.
It makes sense because Peace Walker was so essential, I think, to the story.
Yeah. And it wasn't like a V, it was just like the old school Metal Gear Solid logo but with a 5. But the core question at the center of these is basically what makes us who we are. What are the things that define us as people? Mm-hmm. Is it our genetics? Is it the things we learn? Is it the time we're raised in? Is it something indefinable? Is it something that's just unique to us? Is it the connections that we make with other people, or is it the conflicts that we have with other people? So, I mean, they all kind of come back to that similar core question. So Metal Gear Solid ultimately is about what makes us who we are as people. Mm-hmm. Not to get too, romantic about it, but that's kind of where it all comes from.
No, go ahead, buddy.
But there's also an element of each game to a degree kind of reflects Kojima's own life at the time. Like, and any artist is going to do this. It's nothing right. out of the ordinary. Mm-hmm. He's drawing from his own personal experiences and he's right. putting that in. So, MGS1, he's talked about how a lot of Metal Gear came from the time he would spend playing hide and seek with his son.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inspiration drawn there. MGS2 was drawing on the fact that there was so much anticipation for a sequel to MGS1 that became a meta element of the game.
Yeah.
MGS3, he dived into a bit of his own history. I mean, he wanted the game to start on his actual birthday, but pushed it a year forward because he wanted to include the Kennedy assassination as part of the
right.
plot.
Right.
But that goes into his own personal history a bit more. So that's getting into his past, the generation he grew up in. And MGS3 has this theme of kind of like the generations and the changes from generation to generation. Mm-hmm. 4 comes in and it gets a little murkier, but ultimately that was trying to say, hey, there's this intangible quality to a person's identity that you can't quantify it. It's just something unique to them. It's like, call it a soul, call it their sense of will, call it whatever you want, but there's something unique to each person that makes them who they are that you cannot pass on. That is uniquely you. Mm-hmm. And 4 kind of tries to try to touch on that. Yeah. So like, yeah, there are these, kind of compounded elements where, you've got the theme and then you've got Kojima's experience, both kind of working their way into that story. So if there's kind of, to bring this back around, if there's something I'm looking forward to in Death Stranding and seeing what's there, it's what's he going to do in that regard. We kind of it seems like that's starting to coalesce already, because it looks like the game is going to be in part about how he lost everything and rebuilt, rebuilt his company and got everyone back together and used the connections that he had to get back on his feet again. Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of that to it. But then there's also the element of reconnection. So I wonder, is he going in a different direction, or is it still kind of touching on that aspect of this is what makes us who we are? The bonds that we form with other people. So, right. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious, and that'll probably, come out over time. Yeah. It's probably not something people will really know how to put words to right away.
Well, these
games tend to not be understood until years later.
Well, he's even said as much. Like, he did those interviews around TGS time where he was just like, I think that that people are going to need time to digest it, and maybe sometimes even people will have a life experience in their own lives which will make them think about, well, that's what Death Stranding was about.
Right. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he tackles this, because, I mean, issues in the West are nuanced right now. You kind of have to be in it to get it, mm-hmm. and so I'm wondering if he's only got like a surface level read of the situation, right. Or if he does understand it, and I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see an outsider's perspective, regardless.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Well. And that's
sorry. I talk a lot. So.
No, that's what we had you on for, man. This is great. That's all. I guess. I mean, there's more to say about it, but that's all there is to say about that. Just dust the hands off. Take a sip of your Corona. What was it? Corona?
I am fresh out.
Well, that's
maybe I shouldn't drink when I do these.
Or maybe
no, I think you should. That was fantastic.
Maybe it's the best decision you could have made, Ryan. I mean,
get something harder next time.
So yeah, I mean, unless you have like anything in particular you'd like to add, I think that kind of does it.
Just everybody keep an open mind.
Yeah.
And don't get too upset if it's not what you want. Mm. Everybody makes things not just for other people but for themselves. So if it's not for you, maybe it's for somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah. And
for sure,
again, very actionable advice for literally anything. So I guess that does it for us on this episode. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on the episode.
Yeah, no problem. Again. Glad to be on.
Yeah, I'm sure. So really quick before we talk about us, we want to talk about you. I'm sure you'll be tweeting your thoughts out about Death Stranding when it comes out. So kind of tell us where they can find you on the internet. Plug whatever you would like to plug.
I am at Nitroid on Twitter. That's where I spend most of my time. But I'm also working on a website right now called the Kojima Productions Network. And that will be at koji.pro. The purpose of this is to not just provide news for everything in the realm of Kojima Productions, and that also encompasses Konami and anything peripheral to Kojima's work, but also to serve as an archive for past works and materials. Now, that's not going to be like music or like official music or ISOs or anything like that. It's not going to be anything like that, but like editorials that aren't available online anymore, promotional materials that you can't find in print anymore, videos that have been taken off the web, trailers from years past that you can't find clear versions of, things like that. Anything we can find. Podcasts, for example, like all of the old Kojima Productions reports and KP alerts and all of those are unavailable now. So those we're trying to recover those.
And for the record, we are all still looking for the TigerGame.com version of Metal Gear Solid footage.
Oh man, if somebody I'm going to put out a reward for that someday. I swear, that's my golden. That's my holy grail. But yeah, if you can think of like it won't function the same way, but if you can think of like the Wayback Machine, but for everything Kojima related, that's kind of what we're trying to do. We've got a Discord community set up. If you go to Koji.pro Network on Twitter, there's a link pinned to the top where you can join, and if you think you can help us get things going, or you're just interested in the concept, then drop on by.
Which is actually, it's a great follow, because I like to, given that I do a podcast about it, I like to keep up with as much as I can, but I also, via your Kojima Productions Network Twitter account, I realized that Meanwhile in Genova is by the SLP from the soundtrack is on YouTube now.
Yeah, so, there's that's crazy. He got that many bands for the album.
Oh, we were talking about it on a previous episode, and how me and Cole are both excited about the Bring Me the Horizon song.
Yeah.
Didn't they do a song called Shadow Moses?
They did. It was on their best album, and they sampled the best.
Absolutely the best album.
At the top of it, but they are noted fans of Metal Gear.
That's Ascended fans are always the best.
So we're very excited about the soundtrack among other things. So thank you for that. So yes, definitely go follow Ryan on Twitter and bookmark koji.pro. Get ready for that. Join his Discord. I'm
gonna try to have the site live by the time Death Stranding comes out, but we'll see. It's going to be tight.
Sure. Do what you have to do. Live your best life, Ryan.
Yeah, for sure.
You can find the show at MetalGearMondays.com. It has links to everything, and all of our episodes are on there. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/MetalGearMondays, and Twitter at MetalGearMonday. Instagram is Metal Gear Mondays. Basically, it's Metal Gear Mondays everywhere except for Twitter, because Twitter has a name length problem and wouldn't let us put an S on it. So you can also go Patreon if you'd like to support us on Patreon. We would be very grateful for that. We do a second podcast for patrons at the $2 level called the Patriot Club, where we just talk about whatever. Sometimes we talk about Metal Gear and Kojima, but usually it's not. And you can do all those things. So do all those things. Cole, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at I am Cole Duncan on Twitter, and then on Instagram at Subterranean Homesick Brews.
Hey. And you can find me on Twitter at Sanjul. That's SANJUUL. I don't think I have to spell it anymore at this point, but like it's part of the thing now.
I love that you do that personally. So.
And then you can also get me on my personal YouTube channel. I'll go to bit.ly/SamDoesAthing. I have a couple videos up on there. I'm working on some new ones. They're not anywhere close as introspective and deep as like diving into Kojima and his history, but I definitely do eat the Cheez-It stuffed pizza on there. So check that out. And yeah, that is about it. Ryan, you may or may not be aware of our outro, where we try to meander our way to saying it's just a box to get us out of the podcast and into our regular lives.
Oh God, yeah, I had to do that last time.
You did. Okay, so I won't make you. I won't make you do it again, then.
I don't have any ideas.
No ideas.
I wasted my one good one.
Yeah. Well, so let's see if we can, because Cole's been doing it the last couple of weeks.
I've been putting in work. I'm just letting y'all know.
Please save me from embarrassing myself.
So I'm gonna. I'll
any more than I already have.
I'm gonna try and be deep about this one. I'm gonna do something nice.
Sure.
Let's base it on what we have talked about on this podcast episode.
Absolutely.
Because artists are people. That's a main theme. That's a through line through this episode. Sure. Artists are people. Absolutely. You have to let them be people. And when you try and mold them into this image you've created for them, what are you doing? You're putting them into you're forming them into what you want them
you're forming them into what you want them to be. Yeah, no, I get that, man.
Yeah, and you're placing them into what, I mean, it's just into
your own frame of mind.
You're putting them into. And you gotta let them out of the box. It's just a box. They can't live in there. You gotta poke holes in it.
Just a box.
Okay.
Insane.
That's so stupid.
It works.
It does.
It works.
You got there. That's the important thing.
I did say meander after all.
Just a box.